Hello, this is a video lecture about how to create and format a research essay. This is a video designed for any of my students who need to write a research essay in MLA format. What we're going to basically do today is learn the basics of MLA format, and not just the format of how to use the word processing software, but also how to format your citations, your in-text citations, and your works cited list. So that's the basics of MLA. Then we'll learn how to evaluate the sources and decide when to put a citation. And then, of course, you'll begin creating your works cited list and kind of finishing off your essay. This lecture will also be accompanied by a PDF handout that you can download, and interactive activities and examples that you can use to supplement the video. The whole video will take about 30 minutes to watch. Okay, so many people always require more than one explanation about how to write a research essay. It's a difficult thing to write a research essay. So I'd like to start off with why do we do it? Why do we write essays, and why do we have to use the MLA format? Well, basically, references mean better marks for our essay because they show evidence of research and the ability to write essays which conform to established academic standards and conventions. So if your essay does not contain at least 3 in-text citations or has them incorrectly, it will fail. And that could be thought of as the third reason to use in-text citations. But basically, the reason you come to university is to learn how to keep deadlines and how to do things in a certain way. And writing essays, there's a certain way of writing essays that everyone uses the same way to write, and that helps us to make our essays clearer so that other people in the future can build on our research. So when you write an essay, somebody else might read that essay and use your research to go further. And this way you're part of a community of people who are writing and researching, and that way as a community we can make more progress than if we all just write our own way. So that's the idea. You're part of a research community when you're writing these essays. Okay, do you know who this guy is? His name is Kazuo Ishiguro. We're going to start off with an example talking about one of his works. So he wrote The Remains of the Day and Never Let Me Go, amongst other things. He's a Japanese writer, born in Nagasaki, but he lived and grew up in England, so he writes in English, so we can cite him for our English literature essays. So here's an example of perhaps a part of your essay. It says, an important figure in English literature from Japan is Kazuo Ishiguro. Born in Nagasaki, Ishiguro's family moved to England in 1960 when he was only 6 years old. All his works, most notably The Remains of the Day, have been written in English, and most of them are set in England, although his first 2 books, A Pale View of Hills and An Artist of the Floating World, were set in Japan. In an interview, Ishiguro noted that he had based these novels in an imaginary Japan because at that time he had no memory of it. When he came to Japan to promote his book Never Let Me Go, which was made into a film in 2010, the same name, he spoke only in English to the Japanese press. Elsewhere he noted that if I wrote under a pseudonym and got somebody else to pose for my jacket photographs, I'm sure nobody would think of saying, this guy reminds me of that Japanese writer. Okay, so here is a bit of information about Kazuo Ishiguro, information about his background, information about his writing, and about the fact that he writes in English. The main focus of this paragraph is that Kazuo Ishiguro writes in English even though he's Japanese. Okay, and it provides some examples and of his relationship. Now, is this a good paragraph or bad? Well, it's bad. It's very bad, and I'll show you why using my little pen highlighter. Okay, so for example, here, we're using Kazuo Ishiguro's own words, and it says, elsewhere he has noted. Now, imagine I want to use this quote in my essay. Where am I going to find these words? How do I know this is true? Where is the source of this? Another thing, it said, in an interview. What interview? Which interview? Where's this interview? I want to see this interview. This shows that somebody has done some research, but there's no evidence of the research. The work is not cited, and that is the problem with this essay. You need to cite your essay in order for us to know what's going on. Okay. So now let's look at a better example. It's the same text exactly, but with citations now. So notice a few differences. One, when it says in an interview, it's now being cited. Oh, this was an interview with a person called Oe, and there's the name of the person, Oe, and this is the page number that you would look at to find that piece of information, that source. Also here, it says elsewhere he has noted, and again we've now got the source. It's from Vorder and Hersinger. Okay, so now it has two in-text citations. These are in-text citations. They're actually part of the text. Notice as well that there's these bits here and these bits here. These dates have been added. They don't need a citation because these are facts. But it's good to, if you're going to say that the name of a book, it's good to say the year the book was published. But you don't need a citation for that. But again, it's just evidence of research. Okay, now let me show you an example work cited. Okay, so here, if I want to find this interview, I just look for Oe, and in the work cited I've got Oe, Kenzaburo Oe, and Ishiguro Kazuo. Okay, so those are the people in the interview. This is the title of the interview, The Novelist in Today's World, A Conversation, which was published in the journal Boundary in 1991, and it was published online on the web. Okay, and then the next one, Vorder and Hersinger. Here we got again Vorder and Alan Hersinger, Stuck on the Margins, an interview with Kazuo Ishiguro, again, and this was published on the web. So that's how to put citations in the text and how to put them in your work cited. Okay, so you can find the source, it's cited in the text and then listed in full in the work cited list. That's the basics. Now let's move on. Sources. When we talk about sources, we're not talking about the kind of sauce that you put on yakiniku. We're talking about the sources. We're talking about sources that show where something comes from, the source, where your information is from. Okay, and specifically, we're talking about books, journal articles, and possibly websites as well. Okay, but you can cite anything. You can cite a CD. You can cite the lyrics from a band. You can cite Beatles lyrics. Please don't cite any bad music, but you can cite bad music. You can cite anything. You can cite a movie. You can cite a lecture. You can cite a DVD. You can cite a recording. You can cite something You can cite more or less anything, but you have to use the right format. So here's some examples that I'll show you that this is bad. Now, if you say, some people say that Japanese people think that learning English is a good way to achieve success. That's bad. That's bad because some people. Who are some people? Are they people in an izakaya? You know, is it your grandma? Is it your friend? Is it your teacher? How many people? This is not academic writing, because it doesn't say who. Academic is about specific, and what makes things academic is that it shows the evidence of research, shows the source. So here's a better one. Philip Sargent, who's a professor at the Open University in England, says in his book that Japanese people think that learning English is a good way to achieve success. Now that's much better, but how do you put this into your essay? Well, here's Philip Sargent's book, The Idea of English in Japan, one of my favourite books. And you can either use a direct quote, so he says on page 45, learning English, and then his words are, is often regarded as a good way to achieve success. And that's his words, so because I'm using his words, I need to use the quote marks here. You might be able to hear my son in the background crying. I hope it doesn't get any louder than that. Anyway, and then the author's surname, family name, and the page number, you see? So you only need one name. Sometimes people put Philip Sargent. It's only the surname, the family name, Sargent. Leave out Philip until you put the work cited. If you don't know whether someone's family name or first name is used, then you need to check, but it's usually quite obvious. And then this is the page number. Okay, so that's one way to cite directly, a direct quote. Or you can do paraphrasing. In my opinion, paraphrasing is much better, because paraphrasing shows that you have read and understood the work. Rather than using a direct quote, try to paraphrase things into your own words, and then but you still need to use a citation, and it still needs to be an in-text citation. Japanese people think that learning English is a good way to achieve success. How do we know this? Because Sargent says it. Okay, and then that's a paraphrase, and it's evidence of research. It shows that you've read this book, or that you've at least read enough of this book to cite it. So here's an example with no references. I think that in Japan the ability to speak English is held in high esteem. Everyone thinks that English is a missing piece in the struggle for success. However, I think Japanese people cannot speak English well. It was exceedingly difficult for me, a Japanese person, to learn English. I think that the educational policy and instructional methodology being used in Japan to teach English needs to be revised. And this isn't bad, exactly, but there's a few problems everyone thinks. That's not good. Also this, I think in Japan the ability to speak English is held in high esteem. This would be better with evidence. There's no evidence here. This is good. It was difficult for me to learn English. This is good. This is personal experience. However, if you could find some source or some academic citation to use, that would be better. Let's have a look at a version of the same writing that uses in-text citations with references. In Japan, the ability to speak English is held in high esteem. English is sold as a missing piece in the struggle for success. There's our friend Mr. Sargent. However, Japan continues to feature on the lowest ranks of the TOEFL scoreboard across Asia. Yoshida, 139. In a survey conducted by BNSC Corporation involving 4,718 participants, Yoshida noted that 55% of the participants claimed not to enjoy studying English, and 90% said they were not confident in using English. It's perceived as exceedingly difficult for the Japanese to learn English. It seems clear that the educational policy and instructional methodology being used in Japan to teach English needs to be revised. It's more or less the same content, but here you can really see this person has done some research and they've got the citations, the references that they've used. Another example, autonomous learning, once described as a buzzword, has developed into an integral part of educational theory and practice, or even a precondition for effective learning. The interest in autonomous language learning now has pushed it through the fad barrier and into mainstream pedagogy and practice. Okay, so a big problem here is that there's an actual quote, buzzword. If you're going to use it with references, you need to cite who said the word buzzword, and also it needs to have reference anyone who's you're paraphrasing. So here you could say autonomous learning, once described as a buzzword, little, has developed into an integral part of educational theory and practice, or even what Philip Benson calls a precondition for effective learning. Now here's another way of citing. You can cite using these brackets or parenthesis. If the person is not so important, or if it's not really important who said it to you, or if you want to highlight that who said it, you can say like this, what Philip Benson calls precondition for effective learning, and then that way I know who said it, but it's not in parenthesis, but you'll still need to put this person in your works cited. And here's an example of a works cited list. So there we go, Benson Phil, Teaching and Researching, that's the name of his book. It's edited, the series edited Christopher Candlin and David Hall. It was published in New York by Routledge in 2013, etc. So as you can see, you need certain bits of information in order to fill your works cited list. Now here's basically what works cited list looks like. You've got the author, Wordsworth William. You've got the title of the work, Lyrical Ballads. You've got the published location, London. You've got the publisher, Oxford University Press. And you've got the date, 1967. And you've got the format. It's print or web, basically. Now, here we're going to start talking about the difference between academic and non-academic sources. So sometimes you might find a good source or a good piece of research and want to cite it, and then have trouble because it's from a website and you don't know who wrote it. If you don't know who wrote it, how do you know that it's a good source? How do you know that it's academic? One good website to use is Google Scholar. And now I'm just going to show you an example of Google Scholar. Okay, so let's say I'm using Google now. Go to Google, and if I just type in let's say Kazuo Ishiguro. Okay, the first hit that comes up is Wikipedia. There's nothing wrong with Wikipedia. Next one is his publisher. Sorry, there's a guy on a motorbike going past. Next is publisher and Goodreads, The Guardian, which is a newspaper, Amazon. Now these are good websites, but you can't cite Amazon. You can't really use Amazon as a reference. This wouldn't be good text to use in your essay. So what I recommend is that you use Google Scholar. So to use Google Scholar, it used to be easier, but it's not as easy as it was. So you can go to more, and then you can go to Scholar. Google stopped making it easy to find Google Scholar. Here's Google Scholar. So if you type this, then this will find you Google Scholar. The other thing that you could do is from here you can just type scholar.google.com, and that will also take you to Google Scholar. Okay, then now let's type Kazuo Ishiguro in here, and you'll find that there's his book The Remains of the Day, Never Let Me Go, an interview with Kazuo Ishiguro in the journal Contemporary Literature. That looks interesting. And also the other interview that we've already looked at by Vorder and Hersinger and Kenzaburo Oe in the journal Boundary. So we've found the sources that I already cited. Okay, now if you click on one of these, you might need to be on campus to get access. Okay, as you can see, you can read it online for free, but if you want to download it, you'll need to register, or you can just log in through the Sophia library. Okay, so to view some of these, you might need to be logged in, or you might need to be on campus, or use your library online username to get access to them. Now, another great thing about Google Scholar is that in terms of citing, you can cite them easily by clicking this button, Cite. And oh, look what pops up, the MLA format. So now I can cite The Remains of the Day easily by just copying and pasting. But just beware, this isn't quite complete or perfect citation, because it just says Random House, which is the publisher. It doesn't actually say where it was published, so it needs to say London here. So when you copy and paste this into your essay, please just be aware that that you might need to change it a little bit. So if I paste that in, if you paste that into your essay, let's start again. So if you copy and paste that into your essay, there's a few problems with it. For example, because this is a book title, it should be italics. It needs to have the published location and the name of the publisher, then the date, and then the format, which is print. So it's not quite perfect. Also, this should be capitals like that, The Remains of the Day. So you might have to edit them a little bit, and you might need to use the MLA handbook when you're doing that. But basically, it's a good start using Google Scholar to get your citations from. Okay, so back into my PowerPoint. Now, when you submit your final assignments, they'll be submitted to Turnitin. What's Turnitin? Turnitin is a plagiarism checker. Turnitin stops you from copying and pasting things from the internet. Now, some people might deliberately plagiarize, and some people might do it by accident, and there's a spectrum. However, no matter whether you do it by accident or on purpose, plagiarism is an instant fail. And even if a small percentage of your essay is plagiarized, it will get a fail. Definitely no to copy and paste someone else's words. You should write your own words. It's better for you to have written your own words using simple, easy to understand English than to copy and paste someone else's and get an F. No. Please don't plagiarize.